Hello and welcome to Water Within Astrology. My name is Carly and we're here to talk about the Scorpio Full Moon coming on Monday, May the 12th. And this is happening at 12:56 Eastern Standard Time. So adjusting your time zone accordingly. To find out when this flower full moon is occurring for you. I want to just start by saying that this is my favorite time of year because I am a Scorpio sun and I have 3 other planets in Scorpio as well, which makes me a Scorpio stellium. Shout out to those, if you know, you know. It is an interesting sign and is probably the most misunderstood sign in the zodiac. Debatable, of course. Leave your opinions of that in the comments and why you think these other signs are more misunderstood. But for Scorpio, it really doesn't make that much sense, to be honest. You think of Scorpio and you might think of certain traits like intensity and passion and black darkness and emo people and metal music or whatever else you might associate, obviously maybe witchcraft and stuff like that. And your first thought is definitely not, yeah, that's a healing water sign. Because water signs can be, known to be very emotional and very healing. Like you've heard the phrase "water is life." But Scorpio is one of those water signs that is just not like the other two. It's more of if you think about the ocean and you think about how there are these undiscovered places, these really dark undersea caves and caverns and the dark part of the ocean where you don't see anything, and these creepy creatures lurk there and they're feeding off the dead fish that float to the bottom, and just that is Scorpio. And I'm not here to give Scorpio a bad name. Obviously, I love being a Scorpio, as difficult and as challenging as it might be sometimes. It is, in my opinion, the sign that without Scorpio, all the other signs fall short. And that's such a Scorpio opinion for me to have. But the reason I say that is because Scorpio gets to that part of us that is underneath all the bullshit, that's underneath all the masking, that's underneath all of whatever we do to conform. And maybe that's not anything we do on purpose or we realize that we're doing. This is the subconscious. And for this full moon to be in Scorpio, it's going to be bringing that unconscious to light, right? The full moon is fully illuminated. And the full moon, no matter what sign it's in, is this time where we are having the unconscious brought to light because the moon represents consciousness. And so this could be a time for us to have things and layers of our soul and our psyche revealed to us that we didn't see it coming, or maybe we have seen it coming and now it's this moment of culmination. Maybe there's parts of us that are revealed that we never consciously understood, but now that it's on the surface and it's come up, we can finally say, aha, that makes sense. I get it now. I understand. And, Scorpio is represented by the scorpion, and scorpions are known for hiding themselves and for, coming out at night and for being hidden underneath rocks and logs and, you know, whatever else they can find to hide underneath. And, you know, they're doing this because they know that if you see a scorpion, what are you going to do? You're going to try and smash it. You're going to try and shoo it away. You're going to try to, you know, get rid of it in one way or another, because scorpions to humans are, you know, creepy. They're 8-legged. They're arachnids. And we'll come back to that. But they are, you know, poisonous, some of them poisonous. Either way, even if they're not poisonous, you really don't want to get stung by a scorpion. And so, you know, the reason that scorpions hide is because they are going to be rejected, maybe. And, you know, this is not like nature science. This is a metaphor. Scorpios are known to be outcasts, and they're known to be taboo and to be kind of the odd man out, because it's like this like part of the psyche that is alive in them that most people have rejected, or, you know, they've rejected it within themselves, or they're going to reject it when it comes to the Scorpio bringing it to light. So there's this like fear of rejection, and so sometimes Scorpios can be, you know, inclined to be alone more, even though this sign is actually a relationship sign. What Scorpio craves more than anything, and what it's associated with deeply, is not the sex, not the, you know, BDSM and like going to those kinky places. It is that stuff, but it's on the highest level. It's intimacy and connection. And so that is a huge theme for Scorpios as well, is fear of intimacy. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the, you know, types of astrology social media posts that are like, who was the worst sign you ever dated? And everyone's like, Scorpio. Or you know, especially Scorpio men actually is really the answer that I see more frequently. And I'm not just saying that to put that off myself. But what my theory is with Scorpio men specifically is that because Scorpio is a deeply feminine sign, the men who, you know, depending on what you're actually identified with, because none of that is actually real, but, you know, people who are a little bit more masculine or aggressive, not in a bad way, but like, you know, more action oriented, they can tend to struggle with the Scorpion aspect of, you know, being more passive, being more intuitive, being more of this I attract, I don't chase energy. Because like the other dark side of Scorpio is they can become obsessed with relationships, and they can become obsessed with really anything. One of their dark traits is obsession. And so, you know, you can get caught in that loop of chasing in relationships, because it's, you know, it's this addiction and it's this obsession. But like the healed version of Scorpio is this divine feminine who's magnetic and has this like ability to attract. And we all have that within us, whether we're female or male. But in the Scorpio archetype, it's especially this like seductive and this like deeply mysterious, which is another feminine quality, this like dark feminine, this like alluring and magnetic force that doesn't have to chase, because, you know, it's gonna get what it wants. And that's maybe something that is coming up for us during these days with this full moon in Scorpio. I want to come back to the aspect of 8, with the scorpion being an 8-legged creature. It's also the 8th sign in the zodiac, and 8 is an infinity sign, as we know, and 8 is, the infinity sign, which is associated with abundance and with infinite power and with infinite, just infiniteness, and like, so the eternal life that is within all of us, and this part of us that never dies. And we're gonna get deep and psychological with this video, but I'm hoping to not lose you guys along this ride. Scorpio points to this part of us in humanity that is eternal, that is the soul, if you want to call it that, and it is this part of us that it carries on through lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation. And if you don't believe in reincarnation, maybe there is still something in you that can understand what it is that we're talking about here. This part of us that animates the body. It, whenever we die, there's this part of us that leaves, but our body remains. And so there's this question as to what left? Who was that really who it was, or was this body who it really was? And so, there's obviously many questions around that topic. And Scorpio is here to go into those topics. It's here to talk about the stuff that maybe most people become uncomfortable talking about: death, talking about souls, talking about spirituality, talking about sex. Because if you think about sex, it is this act of creating new life, potentially. And it is this like mystical and, obviously, hopefully bringing pleasure. And it also can be the opposite of that too. And it can be this dark and corrupt and, perverted and just downright dark thing. Something maybe that takes over, and that, the sex addict is a thing. And so there's this like delicateness to the way Scorpio is operating, and it has to learn how to know when is it okay for us to go to those places. Maybe like that's the whole lesson, is like, it wants that deep intimacy, because when you have those deep conversations with people, those are the types of bonds that people, really bond over. And, the late nights, the staying up all night talking, and like, like gazing into each other's eyes, and like, feeling each other's heartbeat, and just all of that deep, intimate stuff. It doesn't always mean sex. In fact, in today's world, most of the time, it doesn't mean sex, because we live in this world where there's, this culture of like dating apps, and not that dating apps are bad. It's just like, they can be used for, like just hooking up, and for like just getting that fix, and just, like using people, because you're just going to have these other options. If it doesn't work out with this person, you can just keep swiping, and it's like there's more options. And I'm really not here to dog anyone about dating apps. I've been on them. I know how it is, and it's like that. All of that is still, any of the darkness that comes out of it is still just this part of us that is dying and begging for intimacy and connection with each other. Even if they claim, I just want to do the one night stand, it's like, actually there is a part underneath all of that that's still just begging for deep intimacy, and to be loved. And so, coming back to that infinite and abundant Scorpio we're at this point with the Scorpio full moon where it's like right at the beginning of summer. It's right at this point where, you know, the flowers are still blooming. There's green everywhere now. The sun is, excuse me. The sun is coming out more. We're almost past the rainy season. And, you know, like this is an abundant time if you look at nature and its reflection. And then when Scorpio happens, Scorpio season happens, when the sun is in Scorpio, it's around late October, early November. And it's just right past the harvest time. And we still have plenty, hopefully, we all still have plenty of stalks left after the harvest. And we're living in this time of like feeling okay with where we're at with our resources. So the thing with Scorpio, especially with this full moon, is it's a fixed sign. And that fixed quality can have pros and cons, just like anything. Excuse me, I think this incense is getting to me. Okay. The fixed quality of Scorpio can be the ability to sustain in dark times. It can be the ability to be grounded and to be stable in times of chaos and in times of turmoil. And I'm not here to project any sort of, you know, limiting beliefs onto anyone's reality here, but objectively, our collective is going through a deep change, and with deep change has also brought deep tower moments, right? And this deep like awareness of who we are as humanity, who have we become, and where do we want to go. And that can be really uncomfortable for us to really look at the reflections that we're seeing reflected in our leaders that we've chosen, reflected in our habits that we partake in, reflected in the results of what our choices that we've made up to this point on our environment, on the species of animals that are becoming extinct, on you know, the rising results of autism growing higher and higher. You know, the list goes on. And we, a lot of the times, don't want to look at that stuff. And rightfully so, because it's very upsetting. And so it's unfortunately Scorpio's job to bring that stuff to light, because it cannot go ignored. It cannot go on unseen. It has to, the secrets are all coming out. The skeletons are all coming out of the closet. They're being dragged out, right? And I've spoken about Pluto being this force that drags us through our transformation, whether we like it or not, in previous videos. And guess what the ruling planet of Scorpio is? Pluto. It also is ruled by Mars, so there are those two planets that we're gonna be looking at here for these transits. So let's get into it. That was a long intro, but I have so much to say about Scorpio. I could talk about it forever. I love it so much. So weird for me to say that, I know. But 22 degrees is the degree point that this full moon is happening. So the sun at 22 degrees Taurus, the moon at 22 degrees of Scorpio. And so we want to be looking at the later degrees now of the fixed signs if you have planets or points there. And, during that new moon that we had in Taurus, we were looking at the early degrees of the fixed signs. And now we're here at the end. We're not quite at the end. 22 is just about, in that last decade. And so we're getting there. Thankfully, we're not right at like 29 or anything. But so we're also seeing at the sun, this exact point of the sun, 1 degree away rather, we have Uranus in Taurus. I'm sorry, that's not 1 degree. It's 4 degrees away, but it will be right there, considered as a conjunction at the time of the full moon. Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is getting closer and closer to Gemini. And so what we see at the final degrees of any sign is an intensity building of the message of the sign. And Taurus, as we discussed 2 weeks ago in the new moon, is about the earth. It's about our relationship to our body. It's about our relationship to rest. It's our relationship to the feminine. It's our relationship to so Taurus and Scorpio both are associated with the reproductive system, with the womb, with fertility, and with, birthing. And so what is our relationship to that? We are seeing, more and more results in the news about birth rates going down and people being incentivized to have more children because people are not having as many children anymore, and there's more and more birth defects. The vaccine stuff was a whole thing around, is it going to lower the sperm count? Is it going to cause birth defects? Is it going to cause infertility? All this other stuff. There's just been a lot that has happened over the past 5 years that really has stirred up a lot of controversy and a lot of questioning and a lot of changes. And this year, specifically 2025, is an unprecedented time of change astrologically. We saw Pluto move into a new sign, which it only does every 20 years. That's the big one. And that was last November, moving into Aquarius, where it now is stationed retrograde at 3 degrees of Aquarius, which means it's getting ready. It is already in retrograde motion. And we see, that Neptune has now moved into Aries. We're about to see Saturn move into Aries on May 24th, so just a couple weeks after this. And then we are going to see, like I said, Uranus moving into Gemini. And those are the outer planets. When the outer planets move all at once in this way, it signifies a generational shift. And I can't tell you how many times I have talked about breaking generational curses with my friends. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. And when I find someone who understands what that even means or has their own definition too, that's where I'm like, okay, this person, these are my people. Like, they get it. We're here to break generational curses. And if you chose to come to Earth, whether you believe you chose to come here or not, we are all here now for a reason. And we are all playing our individual roles. That's actually the Pluto in Aquarius, is what is our individual role in this generational shift? And where can we be more authentically ourselves in order to play that role in the greater shift of change? And that is a huge question, but it is the question that we're all being faced with here. So, yes, like I said, Pluto went retrograde on the 4th, and that is the main ruler of this full moon. And we also have Mars, which is in a trine to Venus during this time. So hopefully that means that if we are feeling any of the dark, deep feelings that are coming up around how we're dealing with all of the changes, around how we've been repressed, how we've been, forced to mask, how we've been forced to work our jobs that we hate, how we've been forced to pay rent that we don't feel like we should have to pay. All of these things that are part of our normal cultural society that truly take a toll on the soul. And, like, you see the memes all the time now where it's like, imagine being a bit of stardust that has incarnated here in a physical body, out of all these odds against us, and then we have to have a career, and that's really, I think that's huge, and that's, I'm glad that we're all able to like joke about it and whatever, but like this is a deep grief at the same time. This is a deep part of us that is so longing to just have a quality of life, to just be able to exist, to just be able to be on this earth without having to pay a tax for it, without having to pay for food that we just, that grows freely from the earth, without having to try to find clean water because all the water in the world has become polluted and undrinkable, and we have to go to freaking Whole Foods to get water. And there's just all of that that's operating on another level that our normal everyday consciousness could be very used to suppressing. And I'm not here to try to rattle everyone out of this like, comfortable I say that, but I'm not here to try to like rattle people into these like psychosis moments where they're like, having panic attacks, and they're like, I know too much. I know too much. It's too much. Like, I get it. I live there. And I think it's just coming to a point now where it can no longer be ignored. And so the big reason that I really think that this full moon in Scorpio is different than the others that we've seen, because it happens every year, is that sun in Uranus, or that sun conjunct Uranus in Taurus. And so what that could mean, Uranus is this planet of sudden awakenings. It's the planet of Kundalini. Kundalini being this psychic force that exists within all of us. And it is this force that pulls back the veil of it pulls back that veil so that we can see what is really going on. It's that red pill, if you catch the drift there. It's this awakening out of the autopilot mode, and it's awakening all the senses. It's awakening our innate creative power. Kundalini is literally just the creative force of the universe. So our ability to make babies, our ability to create anything, art, song, dance, houses, books, whatever it is, everything has creative energy. Gardens, whatever it is, it awakens within us, and we are able to start to create what it is that we have come here to create. Okay, and so Uranus could be actually literal earth-shattering and earthquakes. It represents lightning strikes and storms. It is that tower moment, like I said before, where it's like, the tower moment only occurs whenever the foundation of the tower is not stable. So I'm referring to the Tower card in the tarot, and it's this image of a lightning storm coming through, and there's two people being thrown from this tower that you see shaking and rattling and falling down. And, there's lack of stability. There is, this apparent knowing that the foundation of the tower was not stable to begin with. Otherwise, this tower would have been able to withstand the storm. And so there is this really disruptive and uncomfortable moment when it comes with the tower. But at the end of the day, there is this awareness now that we can move through or move forward with and say, okay, that tower actually wasn't sustainable. And that is so, like, that's always Uranus, right? But especially when Uranus is in Taurus, what is no longer sustainable in the long term? What has never been built on a solid foundation to begin with? And so we can see now, okay, that crumbled because we need a better foundation to build off of. And unfortunately, a lot of the foundations that are in place right now that we have most of our culture built on is patriarchal, male-dominated, and inherently aggressive and action-oriented. Not trying to say that any of that is always bad, but in this case, you know, we're seeing what it looks like to want to have power over and want to just take what is mine and what to just, you know, trample on the little guys and, like, you know, pillage and rape the earth. Pardon my trigger warning there. You know, and just take whatever we need for our own selfish gain because we just can, instead of looking at where we're out of balance, because at the end of the day, we all have masculine and feminine within us, no matter what gender it is. We are always here to learn how to balance those two and to have a healthy feminine and a healthy masculine. And both of those are wonderful things. Not here to dog on men all the time. So, and then, you know, the other part of our foundation is patriarchal and capitalism. Capitalism is this, like, dog eat dog, like, everything is money, everything is transactional, everything is like, what can I get my personal gain from? And so you get the point. Those are not sustainable. And I think we're really waking up to that now. And it's really, like, I know I live there all the time, and I realize not everybody is seeing the same type of news that I'm seeing. But every single day, I'm seeing more and more content being created about the, you know, the dangers that come from commercializing and exploiting and factorying everything and, you know, mass producing and whatever it is. And it's like this more is so unsustainable. And it is, you know, up to us now, with especially this North Node in Pisces, is to figure out how can we bring a more spiritual understanding to what is happening in our shifting landscape and shifting reality? Can we, as a culture and as a collective, become more aware of the spiritual nature that we all inherently have? We all are souls, whether you want to say we aren't or not. We all have this, we all have a spirit that is within us, and that is, you know, we're this spiritual being having a human experience. I'm sure you've seen that before as well. And it's like, where have we lost that spiritual nature part of us? And where have we become overly identified with the human part of us? Yes, we have to balance those as well. But, like, where has that been out of balance for so long? And where have we let this, like, animal nature and this human ness get out of hand and become this thing that just, like, is insatiable? And this, like, you know, are we ever really fulfilled by any of that stuff? Yes, it brings us joy, and it's like, but does the joy even come from the thing itself? Does it ever actually come from just you know, the food, the clothes, the cars, the houses, whatever it is, any of this material stuff, do we actually feel the joy and the satisfaction from any of it because we know that part of us, the spiritual part of us, only like that's why we are attracted to the things that we are attracted to. That's why certain things we like and we don't like. We have preferences. Is it because of this spiritual nature that, you know, we have those preferences at all? It's like that part of us is like, you know, driving this human part, and it's like, actually this would satisfy my soul. Actually this would satisfy my soul better. You know, and we're always like, you know, learning more and more about what our preferences are, and that in itself is this part of us that isn't just a human body. It isn't just like everybody likes the same things. Anyways, you might get the point, or maybe you don't. That's a whole thing. Let's come back. It can be so easy, I think, right now for us to get on these tangents and to go wild, because we also are seeing where am I? Oh, okay. So yeah, we have Jupiter in Gemini squaring the nodes of the moon, the north node and the south node. So there can be this tendency to, especially with Jupiter being at the final degrees, it's at 23 degrees of Gemini. It can be this time now where it's like, I'm so tired of having all the thoughts. I'm so tired of having this overwhelm of information, this overwhelm of options, this overwhelm of needing to study 24/7, needing to, you know, constantly be taking in information, because it's helping us to grow. We think that it's like, you know, we have to, but like at this point we might be really tired of that. And at this point it might be like this mental exhaustion, and, you know, like rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole, or whatever is happening for you. You know, textbook after textbook after textbook, you know, YouTube video after YouTube video after YouTube video, whatever it is. There could be a lot going on there mentally. So I think, like I said, you know, with that square to the nodes, allowing ourselves to go into those more spiritual realms and discover what it is that we can gain from those practices, rather than just like being logical all the time and being cerebral, which is that Gemini. And it can also be, you know, overworking with that too. It's like really just like, where have we lost our joy? Have we lost our sense of joy in all of this? Because you know, Mars, that other ruler of this moon, is in Leo, and Leo is about joy. It's about having your heart open. It's about being in your sovereignty. It's about letting your light shine unapologetically in a way that is, you know, it's gracing people, and not like, here, look at me, I'm so awesome, like in this egotistical way, or in this like craving way, or in this, you know, like I said with Scorpio, like in this way of like, please love me because I need to be loved. And so Mars in Leo is like, when it has that trine to Venus, it's softened, and it is more loving. It's less prone to anger. It's less prone to selfishness, aggressive behavior, violent behavior, because that's another Mars thing. So thankfully we have that working for us, and that Venus in Aries is actually like, let me love myself and let this all come from a place of understanding myself and loving who that is and not judging myself. And, you know, back to the Pluto and Aquarius, being able to love ourselves enough to become more authentically who we are. This full moon is also about integrity a lot. And I think that's going to be a theme coming up for the next 20 years with Pluto and Aquarius too, is just like, where have we actually been out of integrity for a long time, and where are we waking up to where have we been inauthentic? Where has that just plain been out of integrity? And so that's going to be a process, but hopefully we can understand that that's what's happening, and we can figure out how to be in it when it's coming up. And so I want to finish off with just a few more notes. We also have Uranus at the same degree as Algol still, which is, if you remember back to July 13th, 2024, we had a certain person have an assassination attempt on them, and that was exactly conjunct this person's 10th house of reputation, public image, leadership, dharma, job, career, whatever you want to call it. And Algol is this fixed star, which is it represents the head of Medusa and the cutting off of the head of Medusa. And this person got shot in the head, and it was at that point, and we still have that together there. And so there could be something going on around leaders getting got, because that could be a thing. We saw it already once. The likeliness of it happening again, who's to say, but it's there. So I'm going to mention that because I think it's really interesting to just let that be part of maybe the way that astrology is working with the collective and revealing itself to the collective, because I know a lot of people saw that and understood what was happening back in July, and they were like, okay, this astrology is no joke. So anyways, the other thing I want to say is that Saturn is making a trine with the moon. And so what that means to me is, where are we needing to implement more boundaries, and where have we had healthy boundaries that's helping us in whatever situation we might be faced with. Like I said, it could be like a sudden shock and event that comes that rattles us, that we have to figure out how to stay stable in. And we have to realize that this has been a long time coming. This has always been underneath the surface, and now it's coming to light, and it's really uncomfortable. But that trine to Saturn is helping us to realize, like, in the long run, that all of this, whatever's happening, is going to be a good thing. In the long run, and in the building of new structures, right? Because Saturn is at freaking 28 degrees of Pisces. Pisces and Saturn together means dissolving of old structures, dissolving of boundaries, dissolving of whatever hasn't been working. And when this is the last full moon before it moves into Aries, which is like with that trine from the moon is like, okay, whatever happens now might be really, really uncomfortable and really ugly and really gross and dark and terrifying and, whatever. But in the long run, it's going to help us with these new structures and new foundations that we are building for ourselves to have a better life, to have a better structure. I'm not saying don't have boundaries, and but things have to die in order for them to be reborn. That is the lesson of Scorpio, if nothing else. Scorpio and Pluto are about whatever has died has been for our greatest good, for our soul's good, and whatever has died is now working as compost for the new to grow. And I think that is ultimately the lesson of astrology as well, is like, all of this is happening for some better version to come through, this higher version of us to come through, for all of us to learn the soul lessons that we came here to learn, for all of us to try and understand this language, this ancient language that helps us on that journey. It helps us through our earth school. It helps us to kind of start to really understand the energy and what's happening around us. And the best part about astrology and the worst part is that it will always still be a mystery. There is no black and white. There is no rhetoric. There's no set in stone anything when it comes to astrology. It's just opening us up. It's kind of like, giving us like a little bit smaller of a pool of options to choose from. It's like a word bank. It's like, it's not going to give you the answer. It's just like, it could be any of these options. So, coincidentally enough, astrology is ruled by Scorpio. So, when I first started learning about astrology and I started learning about my own chart, I started hearing, like what certain placements were good astrologers, and an astrologer is basically like an investigator, and that's Scorpio too. It's this thing that goes into these mystery places, and it will excavate, it will go under the surface, and it will pull out the gems and make sense of the mystery, or try to make sense of the mystery. And it will also always honor the fact that the mystery will never be solved. And that's what being human is all about. That's what being in this human experience is about, is like working with the mystical, working with these parts of us that we don't understand. And I think that's just what gives, the spice of life. And I'm so grateful for anyone who's watching this video for being someone who also finds this type of information in this subject, a spicy, like, little part of your life too. So, with that, I will go ahead and end it here. One more thing about Saturn. Saturn is also conjunct Demeter or Ceres, and she is this goddess who was the mother of Persephone. She represents this harvest abundance goddess, like we've been talking about, but she also represents what part of the feminine has been lost. What part of the feminine has had something stolen from her. And this could be a wide range of things. It could be, from losing a child because her daughter was literally stolen from her. It could be, losing your purity because she's, whatever Persephone represents in the story, she was this pure, maiden. And when she gets drugged down to the underworld by Pluto, she goes through this transformation from maiden to mother, from maiden to queen, really. And she, could represent a myriad of things. And I think we are being truly asked to look at the feminine archetype in our culture and look at where we have lost our connection to the earth, our bodies, our like rest, like all the Taurus things, our ability to just be, instead, like, we're human beings, not human doings. And, this ability to create beautiful things just for the sake of it bringing us pleasure, just being able to, like, sing because, it doesn't matter if we're good or bad, it's just using the voice, using the body, letting go of judgment, so many things with our relationship to the feminine as a collective. And actually, one more thing I do need to say is we still have Black Moon Lilith there in Scorpio, and as she's only at 5 degrees, she's still there in Scorpio, and that's that wild feminine, that dark feminine, that part of us that has been rejected, that part of us that refuses to be subservient, that part of us that is wild, that can survive in the wild, that, is very fertile, that's very alive, that's very wild, and that is there too. So what we're working with this full moon is not for the weak, first of all. Second of all, it's deep psychological and inherently feminine mysteries and, things that have been repressed, generational conditioning that we've all been put through, whether you're male or female, to sit down, to shut up, to be quiet whenever you're, put your big feelings away. Don't talk about sex. Don't talk about certain subjects because it's not appropriate. It's whatever you're talking about, astrology, you're talking about tarot, you're talking about witchcraft. We're not talking about that because that's impure. That's this. That's that. Like all of that. We're dealing with that now, and how that's not sustainable. And the feminine is gonna maybe come in a way that's like, I'm done sitting down. I'm done taking your shit. I am done being quiet. I am done being told to sit still. I'm coming up and you're gonna hear me, and rightfully so. We just have to figure out how to not let the rage take over, and not let the rightful pain and grief that we are feeling, perhaps as a collective. We need to feel those things, and we need to let ourselves feel it and really come to terms with what it is we're feeling. But at the same time, we have to remember that we are all here together, and at the end of the day, something is changing for the better, and we might not understand it. It might be so horribly difficult for us to manage the emotions, and so horribly difficult for us to continue on with what's going on, and we have to. And we have to let that layer of us be revealed in order for us to move forward into something new and better. So, I will say one of my favorite things to say about Scorpio is Scorpions do have that poison or sting to them, whether they're poisonous or not. And in certain healing modalities, poisonous plants and, poisons from frogs and stuff like that are being used in ceremonial healing circles to use the correct dose of this poison in order to reach a higher level of understanding of our consciousness, of understanding of the mystical world, going into those psychedelic experiences, and using those things as a means of progress. Even though, like, you know, call it a bad trip, call it whatever you want, there is no such thing as a bad trip. Any of what is exposed to us and revealed to us in those times are ultimately, at the end of the day, for our highest good, for us to see. You know, we asked for it. We invoked those spirits of the plants and whatever poisons. And so we're getting what we want now out of this. And what are we going to do going forward after all of this is said and done, after the bad trip is over? So yeah, it's all about dose. It's all about balance. It's all about all of those things. And we are going to go with the Crystal Oracle because one of the things with Scorpio going beneath the surface is it rules crystals, it rules buried treasure, rules things like this that are beneath the surface, but you have to dig. You got to do some digging, and you got to not be afraid to go into the darkness in order to see them, in order to find them. Okay, which cards do we need from this beautiful Crystal Oracle for today's full moon in Scorpio reading for the collective? Please help us to understand what it is. Ooh, okay. So, okay, we got rainbow healing. And so these are just a bunch of tumbled stones, actually. So it's not just one stone. But it came out upside down. These cards don't do upside down meanings, so you can take it or leave it with whatever interpretation you would like of this. But I am going to interpret it as upside down. Today marks the start of a new beginning, a new way of looking at life and the world around you. Be it in dreams or through beautiful rainbows, you're being infused with light and blessings. Relax. Surrender your concerns to the universal light of love and allow this wondrous healing to occur. You will soon find that others are attracted to you. Maybe many will come and seek your help and advice, for you are a beacon of light unto all. In the near future, you will empower others with your love and wisdom as you help them to see their own inner light and beauty. You are a natural-born healer who heals through the power of love. Yeah. That's and the reverse meaning could just be like you are doing the healing, but maybe it's a little uncomfortable right now, and maybe it feels like your whole world has been flipped upside down. And the second card that was on the bottom of the deck is Pyrite, which is, if you know, Fool's Gold. It means emotional balance, psychological strength, relationships, and protection. You may be feeling emotionally unbalanced at present because you have allowed yourself to, or at least partially, believe another's critical judgments of you. This malicious criticism was directed at you by someone who falsely believes that they will gain something by belittling you. To regain your mental strength and emotional balance, you must realize that this whole episode is simply emotional blackmail. You are dearly loved and held in high esteem by many. So see this episode for what it really is and do not allow yourself to be affected by what one person says. Others know the truth. Pyrite can help strengthen you psychologically and emotionally. So yeah, when we make choices that are not conforming with the societal norms, when we do things that are taboo, when we do things that are breaking out of whatever has been culturally acceptable, people start to you start to realize which of your relationships are true and which aren't true, and who has benefited from you being small and from you playing small and from you playing the role of the good people pleaser and the good person who doesn't have any boundaries, who just lets people walk all over you. And when those people start to come at you for how dare you finally stand up for yourself, how dare you show these emotions that make me uncomfortable or bring up these subjects that make me uncomfortable or whatever it is, you realize like who's actually here to do the work, who's actually here to support your growth, who's actually here to look at these things in a way that's okay, I can put my ego down and I can see what you're saying, and and who's not. So that could be a thing too right now. And I think if we are losing any relationships in our lives right now, we are losing them because they are not going to be with us in the future. They are not going to support the growth that comes from here on out. And so we want relationships that support our growth. We want relationships that are gonna be willing to grow themselves too. And we want mutually beneficial relationships, and not someone who's just going to walk all over us and take us down and energetically drain us. Last thing, we're gonna pull a rune. Something is going on. Okay. It looks like a C, but it also looks like an M without the middle part taken out. I don't know what it looks like. Oh, okay, yeah. Wow, perfect. Okay, so it represents the elder tree, feminine, dance, and sex. Perfect for Scorpio. Scorpio. She rules the reproductive system. She rules that dark feminine that is not afraid to dance wild. It's not afraid to twerk. It's not afraid to, get wild. But it also holds that energy of sexual energy in a sacred way. And it understands that sacred energy and our energy, our creative Kundalini that is sacred and should be protected and should be shared with those who are worthy of it being shared with. So I really appreciate anyone who has come to this point in the video with me and who has liked and subscribed. Please send this video if it resonates with you to whoever you think it might benefit, and we will see you in 2 weeks. We've got the new moon in Gemini coming up next, and that should be a fun time of togetherness and community. Hopefully, after this time of isolation and hiding and dealing with our emotions, we can come out of it and we can be able to be with people again, and we can enjoy life and have great conversations and do all the things that make life worth living. So we'll see you in 2 weeks.